Good afternoon, Jen. Not nearly as serious and significant, but still a lot of damage here. We're in Troup County. We're about an hour or so down 85 from the South Metro of Atlanta. The reported tornado hit here just before 7 a.m. this morning. Now, we're on the side of 85, on the east side of 85. The worst damage is on the other side of 85. But the good news overall, no injuries and no fatalities. Everybody got out of here okay. Let me give you a rundown of who was here. In this first house, we had a gentleman and his mom. They got the warning. I mean, literally, the warning came out just before the tornado hit. They got into their hall closet, and they're fine. No scratches. They're still here. House behind me also pretty much totaled as the tornado came across this way. In this house was a grandmother and her grandson. They are fine. No scratches. It's a pretty little tight block here with these three homes. They got picked up by friends earlier. And then we have the third house here down on the left. Again, a total loss. And there was another lady there. In fact, the sister to the grandmother. So she was the great aunt of the grandson that was in the house. She's fine, and she's with friends and family. So you get a sense that they got to the right place just in the nick of time. There was not a tornado watch out at this point. One was issued about 30 minutes later for parts of Alabama and Georgia. So they got into their safe places, and they're okay. You can see the homes. They have a brick front, but we're not talking about the best brick construction, and this fell forward even though the tornado was coming in from the other way. We're looking across the trees. You can see looks like an outbuilding out there in the woods. And once again, just a stone's throw from here is Interstate 85. If you come down 85 north or south the next week or so or whatever, you'll see exactly where this reported twister crossed the highway. We'll have more on what happened here in South Georgia, Southwest Georgia coming up, and also more on the severe threat that continues this afternoon and this evening in the Deep South. Stay with the Weather Channel throughout the afternoon and this evening. Good afternoon once again from West Point, Georgia. We're down 85, about an hour or so south of the metro Atlanta area. A reported tornado, came through here and hit pretty hard this morning just before 7 a.m., just about daylight here. The warning was issued at about the same time at 6:53, and that's the first reported touchdown from the Storm Prediction Center, the Weather Service. Then we talked to the folks here when we got here. Fortunately, nobody with a scratch. We had a total of 5 people in 3 houses. They're all fine. The lady in this house, the older lady who's related, her sister lives next door, got out fine. But you can see what's left of the home. It's like a couch there, a sofa. Somebody may have been watching TV. Notice in the kitchen cabinet, we see this before where the cabinet's gone, but the items inside the cabinet are fine. They're just sitting there like nothing happened. So all this brick structure got blown down. And then in the background behind me, you can see a structure. I'm not sure what it was. Looks like a little bit of a kind of an outbuilding is in the woods. Now, the winds came basically from this, or the tornado came basically from this direction, through the woods, over I-85, to this side. Let's take you to the other side of I-85 where the damage is worse. This is the west side of Interstate 85 down here in West Point. And look at the drone video. And it's hard to imagine that everybody got out and nobody was injured. No reports of any injuries here in Troup County with this reported twister. Of course, the Weather Service will be out here today, I assume, because they're not far away from Peachtree City to take a look at the damage and give us an idea of how strong this tornado was. Once again, it hit at 6:53 here a.m., and then it continued over towards Meriwether County later in the morning. They did put a tornado watch out at about 7:30 a.m. Eastern this morning. So the good news all around here is everything can be replaced. Nobody was injured. Everybody else is fine. And Dr. Postel, that's the way we like to see it. They heed the warning, although it was short-fused, and they got to their safe place, and nobody is in harm's way. Nobody's in rough shape this morning or this afternoon after what hit here just before sunrise this morning.
Mike, does it surprise you the extent of the damage? Because the aerial photos that we're getting show very extensive and severe damage. I mean, this was no minor tornado that moved through. We're looking at drone video right now, and some houses are completely destroyed.
Yeah, there's a lot of damage here. When you come down 85 and the trees have been sheared, I mean, it's very obvious that a twister came across the interstate. And I saw that first before I got here. And then I come here, and these homes are, you know, they're built with brick and timber. So they're fairly strong homes. So you got to think this is a pretty significant tornado. Maybe not, certainly not a 3, but I would say this has got to be pushing at least high end 1, low end 2. I'm not the official observer, just looking at how the brick walls have caved in and how this building was blown into the woods and how the trees have been sheared. Let's spin around, look across the street here, and you'll see the pine trees, and this is what you'll see if you come down the interstate. It's really interesting if you've traveled around and you see a big area on either side where trees have been sheared. More than likely that was a tornado, a path of a tornado in the past. So look at the pines. Now these are mostly softwoods, pine trees, Dr. Postel, but still the sheer force of the wind that came in here around sunrise this morning. Again, a short fused warning. It wasn't one of these situations where we had to watch out for 3 hours and they had 30 minutes lead time on the warning. So they really, the gentleman we talked to here, he got the warning on his phone, and seconds later they get to the hall closet and it hits. So they, boy, just like that, it was on top of them. And, you know, he told me he's seen a lot of tornadoes on TV, and you watch it and you see what people go through, but it's not the same when you're in one yourself and you experience it. I mean, it just hits very quickly. He got up, you know, comforted his mom. He was basically trying to protect his mother in the closet, and then he looks up and he doesn't have a roof on his house anymore.
Yeah. That is remarkable. I mean, these stories remind us that you have to act. You get the automatic, you know, movement to your safe spot.
Good afternoon, Jen, here from Troup County. We're in the town of West Point. We're about an hour or so south of the Atlanta Metro down 85. And if you come up and down 85 in the near future and beyond, you're going to see where the tornado cut a path right across the interstate, came over this way and hit this community. I say community, 4 homes, 3 are totaled. This is one of them, and both of the houses we see right here in front of us. The water is still running. We notice this over here, photographer Chris Erickson. The jewelry box sitting on the dresser here in the bedroom has not been touched. We see that a lot where items will just sit there and meanwhile the whole wall is gone. So it's amazing how the wind will swirl around, and it certainly swirled here. Over here we have the bottom of what was an outbuilding, a bit of a base here. Now where's that out? Oh, by the way, the roof from the house is tangled up in these pine trees. These are all mostly softwoods, but they've all been sheared off 10 to 15 feet high. But the outbuilding that was sitting here is now way over here in the woods. So it got picked up and deposited right there. Look at the size of this root ball. And there's another tree on the other side of one of the homes. The root ball's got to be twice as big. Now, this is just a huge root ball. Of course, we've had a lot of rain recently, more rain last night, so it makes the uprooting process a little bit easier, especially when you have the kind of winds we likely had here last night. The rest of the houses, looking down here on Shoemaker, you can see the roofs are gone. Let me give you the good news here, the great news. There were 5 folks, 2 in the first house, 2 in the second house, and 1 in the house here right behind me. They're all fine. They all got out without a scratch, and they're happy that they are okay. They did the right thing. It was a short-fused tornado warning. We didn't have a tornado watch out at the time, but the warning came out about the time the tornado hit, or just a few minutes before, as we talked to one gentleman here, Winston, just a few moments ago, and he told us about how he got through the twister with his mom.
I was sleeping, then my phone alarmed me to get up, and I got up and got my mom up and put her in the closet, and we got in the closet, and then the building just started collapsing everywhere. So after about 10 minutes, you know, I finally got her up and looked outside. We didn't have no roof. So my living room, trees everywhere, so I'm assuming God willing, got her through it.
Kerry Winston told us later that he'd been in tornadoes before, nothing like this, nothing this up close and personal. And he says until you're actually in one like he was, you really have no idea what it's like, because all of this damage, everything you see here happens in a matter of about a half a minute. Once again, this area hit here in West Point. The larger damaged area is on the other side of the interstate, and we'll show you some video, drone video of that coming up shortly. Dr. Postel?
Yeah, Mike, it was really impressive. Did you get a sense for the fact that they were kind of woken up in the early morning? Because it was like a 6:45 to 7:15 time frame. That's not common for tornadoes to be moving through, right?
No, not at all. In fact, when we talk about cold fronts coming into this part of the southeast Atlanta, down here, LaGrange and Columbus, and here in West Point, we often think that the worst of the day typically is, mid-afternoon till maybe midnight. But typically the ingredients weaken or outrun the main push of the warm, humid air, and then the things weaken and fall apart like we saw on Friday night and Saturday morning, correct, Dr. Postel? That was the line that hit Mississippi the night before, yes. So when that came through, really nothing. We had about an inch of rain in metro Atlanta, but this was a whole different story down here. And the Weather Service, you got to keep an eye on these cells, because like this one, it literally spun up a tornado out of nowhere.
It did. Mike, thank you very much for that reporting. We'll get more of that footage coming out of that region.
Hit earlier today by an apparent tornado meteorologist. Mike Seidel is there. Mike, Georgia has declared a state of emergency. A lot of damage, a lot of cleanup to be done here.
Yes, indeed. The power is coming back on, though. About 3,000 customers in Georgia, most of those in the southern part of the state, or at least south of I-20 in Atlanta. Where we are in West Point, we're about an hour and 15-minute drive from the Atlanta metro area. And the reported twister, and very likely a tornado, hit here in West Point, right along in either side of Interstate 85. And Miss Robin Johnson was home last night with her young grandson, 2-year-old grandson. And it was actually early this morning around sunrise. The rain woke you up, and then what happened from them?
Oh, well, when the rain woke me up, my phone went off, and they said that it was a tornado warning, and for us to take shelter because it was going to hit by 7:30 this morning. But right before 7, the siren went off, and they said that to take cover. And I jumped up and I grabbed my grandson and I went to the bathroom, and me and him got in the tub, and right when we got in the tub, it hit. And I just sat there until, I didn't hear anything else. And it was like about 2 minutes, and I didn't know all of this damage was out here until, later. But that's about, what had happened this morning here.
So you did the right thing. You reacted very, very quickly because, as we've talked to all your neighbors, because of the short timing on the warning, you had no time to spare.
Right. Well, I always said when, that was the only cover I had in my house. So that's why I did what I did. And like I said, when they said it, I heard it, and that's when I went to the bathroom.
So you came out, and by the way, we want to show you some of the drone video. I don't know if you know this, Ms. Johnson, but on the other side of the interstate, there's a lot more damage. But fortunately, nobody in West Point was injured or killed. That's the saving grace. But we want to show that video while we continue our interview and look at the house from the front. It looks pretty good, but you told us as you came out, you found some issues with your roof.
Yes. Well, no. When I was in my house, I guess the tree, it's a hole in there, and water was pouring down in my living room and one of my bedrooms. So I figured, a hole is up there. So, but that's, that's about pretty much damage, except for around this front and on the side and in the back also.
And the car.
Yeah, my car.
Not a scratch on the car. How about that, huh?
Yeah, that's a good
You're
thing.
very, very lucky because a lot of folks lose their cars and may not even have much or any damage to the house.
Yes.
Okay, Miss Ruth Johnson, Robin Johnson, rather, we appreciate your time here and glad you're okay. And your grandson's okay, and everybody's okay in your family.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm glad everybody on this block is okay.
Exactly.
It's really, it was bad. I didn't know their houses was that bad.
You got that right. Okay, back from West Point. We'll keep you apprised of the situation here. Severe weather continues. We've got a tornado watch. We'll update you after the break on the Weather Channel. Welcome back to West Point, Georgia. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel. We're just south of Atlanta by about an hour or so down the interstate. And if you come up and down 85 anytime in the near future, you're going to notice exactly where this reported tornado came right across the interstate. We're on the other side, I say, the east side, the west side across there. And we'll show you the drone video from the west side. Much more extensive damage as far as number of homes hit. But fortunately, no fatalities anywhere in West Point, which is the promising news. We're glad to hear that after the horrible tragedy over in the cities of Running Fork and also the other towns in Mississippi. Damage is pretty widespread. We've got 3 homes on this road out of about 5 that have been hit pretty hard. They're all a total loss. We've been walking and talking. There are 5 residents in the 3 homes, and they're fine. They got out without a single scratch. And the power company, by the way, Troup County had about 700 so customers out about a half an hour ago. That's about 4% of their power base. And right now we've got the power crews up here on Shoemaker, which is the road here off 85, and they're starting to get the power lines back up, and we'll get the power back on. You can see to the left there, all the trees have been sheared off. Mike Bettis, you've seen that before. Regardless of the fact that they're pines and not hardwoods, it still takes a pretty formidable wind to do that to the trees here in the forest here around Interstate 85 down here in West Point. So once again, a lot of damage, but no fatalities. Mike?
Yeah, tons of damage, Mike. But the good news out of all that is that no one lost their lives there in that tornado.
Good evening in West Point, Georgia is where we're standing here, about an hour or so south of Atlanta, down Interstate 85. And this is the aftermath of the tornado reported, but obviously a tornado. Weather Service from Peachtree City still doing damage assessments in Troup County. It hit here just before sunrise, 6:53. There was no tornado watch, but there was a short fuse tornado warning. And the son and his mother got into the interior hallway. They're fine. House is pretty much a total loss, but notice something salvageable, the appliances, the washer, dryer, and freezer, and also the refrigerator. They look like they're in pretty good shape, although more rain is coming down tonight. Talk about that in a minute. Here's the second of 3 homes where we had quite a bit of damage. 2 folks in this house, a grandmother and her grandson. They are fine, too. They got out without a scratch, fortunately. But, boy, can you imagine getting into the interior room and all of a sudden the thing just collapses all around you? I talked to them. They had never been through anything like this in their lives. Now the big issue in the short term in this part of Georgia is not the severe weather. It's the flash flooding. This ground it's like a sponge down here. We've had so much water, so much rain, including last night and this morning. Now we're under a flash flood watch until tomorrow morning, Mike Bettis. And some areas could get up to 4 to 5 inches more rainfall. So between now and mid-morning Monday, it's really a flash flooding angle versus a severe angle.
Yeah, and on top of what they've already had to deal with, now that threat comes in.